Good afternoon. It's 3:12 p.m. on June the 21st, 2023, Wednesday. Welcome to Peacock Peekaboo and welcome to the Grab and Go series, where I grab my phone and I go with the flow of the Holy Spirit. I go with the download that is being deposited in my spirit so that I may deliver a message to you. Why am I recording from this really awkward angle? Well, here's the deal. I've been in the belly of the fish, the great fish, the whale, like Jonah, for a really long time now. I'm very uncomfortable being on this camera recording, but it's what God requires of me. There's a ministry that God has for me, and I've been instructed to go to Nineveh and deliver a message to the people. Not literally, of course, that was Jonah's story, but God has mandated for me to do something, and I haven't done it, and I fear the Lord. I really do. So if it means that I have to record in a very awkward position in order to feel comfortable on camera, and I still don't, this is what I'm going to do so that your message, his message for you, can be delivered and I can be obedient. That's basically what it is. Well, so this is the best angle that I could find. Anyway, what I need to talk about today is really geared towards the relative caregiver. Relative caregivers of a loved one's child or children that have entered into the foster care system. Either they were retrieved from the system or they were prevented from going into the system. Either way, I am the relative caregiver of all 4 of my grandchildren. Now, I was already caring for my now 15-year-old grandchild. Oh, geez. She's been with me all of her life. That was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, but 15 years later, here I am. I'm still here. And about 6 years ago, her 3 baby brothers did enter into the foster care system from out of state, and I retrieved them from there. Actually, it was over 6 years. I've had them over 6 years. So I've had custody of all 4 grandchildren together for over 6 years. It's been quite a challenge. It's been a struggle. But as delightful as my grandchildren are, as much as I love them, I don't have the anointing for that. I don't have the giftings for that. I was gifted with grace to be able to do it for a certain period of time. But my time has expired in this capacity. And I know that God was allowing for me to experience this up to a certain point so that I could move further into onto a new path, into a new area of ministry, so that I can help to prepare others that will find themselves traveling along this same road. This same road. Hold on. Okay, well, we'll just deal with that. Again, when I'm able to do better, I will do better. But in the meantime, so I've had custody of my 4 grandchildren, and it has been challenging, but my heartstrings were just pulled and tugged in every direction, and there's nothing else that I could imagine doing to try to help out in this situation. And even though God knew that this would be a disaster for the most part, because I'm not anointed in this area, and it changed me to my core. God knew that He was going to get the glory out of this situation and use this for the purpose for which I was created. And so for a period of time, God allowed for me to accept this role, this responsibility, knowing what it would do to me, what it would do to the children. But God knew that it would also allow me to have the experience needed in order to share with others that will find themselves on this very same road. So here I am, grandmother of 54 years old and custody of 4 babies that I'm not impressing now. There's really no going back. But what I can do is move forward with the information, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that I've gained, the lessons learned along this journey, so that I can share with you and in my effort to help prevent you from falling into the deep pits that I dug for myself and that I found myself in, and I have found myself covered up in and covered up by and unable to survive in. So much has happened along this journey, and I will be sharing those stories. But in the meantime, I really want to just talk about the importance of being supportive of relative caregivers within your community, within your very family. When there's not enough support, when the support is inadequate, when the provision is non-existent, when the resources fall short, families fall through the cracks. Not just the child that's in the foster care system, as we've often heard, that a child somewhere has fallen through the cracks, usually indicating that someone wasn't on their job when it comes to the child welfare department, and that somehow a child ended up in a very detrimental situation, may have lost their lives simply because this child slipped through the cracks of the system. However, entire families are slipping through the cracks of the system because the gaps are so large. Over time, this dilapidated system of the foster care system within the United States, could even be globally, the system has so many fissures and gaps and holes and craters that entire families are being failed. We are. We are a very underreported, misrepresented majority. There are some people that fare well when dealing with the welfare system, the system that steps in to help children and to retrieve children, to save them in some situations where they need saving. And then there are other children that don't necessarily have the need for the types of services that they provide within this system. Sometimes families just need a little support, guidance, parenting classes, groceries. Sometimes there are parents that are doing the very best that they can do, considering whom they were raised by and the circumstances that they found themselves in. Sometimes just a little support can go a long way. But there are children that enter into the foster care system by so many different means, so many different paths. The parents could be deceased. And with the global pandemic that we experienced, we saw a lot of that. not just single parents being taken out of here, but sometimes both parents, and the children being suddenly orphaned without warning, without enough time to prepare, or families to have conversations. Uh-oh, there it is, whatever that was that I was chewing on. Forgive me. But children enter into the foster care system in many ways. The parents could be unable to care for them, unable to cope, struggling and battling with drugs, alcohol, substance abuse. And so, many children end up in the system. How can we help out? How can you help out? If there's someone within your community that needs help, I'm going to offer some suggestions, ways that you can help out that can provide immediate relief for some families. Because at the end of the day, the children are the ones that are suffering. They're paying the highest price. And when we fail them, eventually they will fail us. And society, eventually they will fail us in their futures. They are the future. But I'd like to tell a short little story, just so that you'll have a greater idea of just how important it is to help out in your community, to be a support to a family that's been failed by the foster care system. And that's not everyone's story, but it's ours. And there are many others like us. We're often in the silent majority. We're often in a group that is overlooked. The story that I want to tell is one that I heard of within the past several months. I believe it was last December. There was a grandmother that ended up inheriting all 12, 12 children. Her 35-year-old daughter went in to give birth to her 12th child, and the mother did not survive. Instantly, this angel of a grandmother put on her superhero cape the same way I did, flew into a situation, a burning building, and decided to rescue everybody the same way I thought I would do. Our outcomes are so very different. Seeing that there was a lot of sensationalism regarding her story, a lot of national attention, a lot of global attention to her story, because of the manner in which she received the children through the death of her 35-year-old daughter, and the number of children that she chose to rescue and she's trying her best to raise. This woman received immediate assistance from what it appears. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, but there are lots of people around that really wanted to help out. I don't know the remainder of her story today, but I do believe that she's in a much better position than a lot of other families are. My situation, and that of many others that do this on a daily basis, didn't receive national attention because it's expected that grandparents will just step up when there's a need to care for a loved one's children. There's no fanfare, there's no parades going, there's no attention because this has become the norm. Grandparents as parents is real. And great-grandparents as parents is just ridiculous to me, but it happens. There are aunts, there are uncles, there are even older siblings or cousins that will step in as young adults, barely making the legal age to be able to adopt or foster their younger relatives in the system in an effort to keep these babies together. They deserve a lot of attention and support as well. But I can only tell you about my story because I'm living it. The facts are, our family was failed from the very beginning. We entered into a system that has been nothing but a nightmare for us ever since. We've been dealing with the state of Arizona's foster care system, and as old and outdated and dilapidated as it is, it needs an upgrade, an overhaul. It needs to be stripped to the studs and rebuilt on a brand new foundation. I know that we could not possibly be the only family that's been failed by this system. And I know that this is not the only state that has fallen short. What can we do? What can we do to help out while there's an overhaul, while there's attention being brought to this problem, while there are laws that need to be changed that I'm lobbying for? What can be done? What can you do to help out? You see, in the situation with the grandmother of 12, there was a lot of attention brought to that. And I thank God for that for her, so that her experience would not be as devastating. She's already grieving the loss of her daughter. And so I would never want to add anything more to that. But for those of us that do this and have been doing it and do it with a lower number of children, it doesn't mean that our need for help is any less than that grandmother's. It doesn't. I have 4 and it feels like I have 12. I've been so overwhelmed, my health is taking quite a hit. The years that have gone by haven't been very kind to us. Believe it or not, we're actually displaced. We had a global pandemic and somebody thought it'd be nice to just put a price tag on the home that we were leasing. They could make a huge profit as investors and realtors that own the property. Next thing you know, a family of 5 instantly displaced and still can't get on our feet. The struggle is real. There's not enough funding, especially coming from another state system whose benefits are far below that of our home state, our resident state. My grandchildren were simply passing through that state and ended up in a foster care system that refused to relinquish our case and transfer our case to our home state, where we would be able to fully benefit from the benefits and services and resources made available here. We can't receive benefits from that state and this state too. We'd be double dipping. And so, a family of 5, we go through. I have to keep going. I have to wipe tears, and I have to give hugs, and I have to keep going. I have to brave it out and toughen up and suck it up and all of that just to keep going. That lovely grandmother with that beautiful angel heart who went to work immediately and made the decision, the same decision I made, but with a different outcome. I remember seeing a comment made regarding her situation, and someone said, well, you know, there are celebrities that help out, and Tyler Perry likes helping families like this. First of all, Tyler Perry is his own best spokesperson, I'm sure. Number 1. But number 2, for those of us that don't receive the national or global attention necessary for our families to be helped too, we're overlooked. And Tyler Perry is simply one person that can't do the job that our next door neighbor or our family members can do. So while some are waiting for the rescuers to come, the life saving efforts of celebrities that are simply physically detached from our situations, our circumstances, some that are not even knowledgeable about what we're going through, and some that may hear about it and figure that we'll find solutions to our own problems. What do we do in the meantime? It's great if Mr. Tyler Perry could help that lady. It's great if he's able to help out certain families in certain situations. But the rest of us, realistically, we can't wait for the Tyler Perrys of the world to come, because he's only one person and he's a human being. Our problems are not necessarily his, but it is a global problem. It is a national problem. It is a community problem. It's a family problem. So what can the rest of us do while some are waiting for the Tyler Perrys of the world to come in and help us? He's not the only person, and that's too much pressure to put on one kind human being. That's not his job. Even if he took on such a project, it's not his job. He can't save the world. So what can we do to help save one another's families? You see, my grandkids may go to school with your grandkids, and their experiences in childhood are totally different from one another. My grandkids just want to know where they're going to sleep for the night. My grandkids just want to know what they can eat. My grandkids just want to be kids. They'd love to be able to go to Disneyland somewhere. They listen to their classmates ramble on about their vacations and their Christmas presents and their pets and their backyards and their bedrooms. And these kids, that's not their story. Every childhood story is not a fairy tale. It's interesting because I helped to collaborate on a children's story. The year was 2014 when the book was published. My name is not on it, and that doesn't matter. The fact is, in this collaborative project, the other writer, the registered writer, the known writer of our story, wanted a different type of ending. And it was a beautiful ending. It was bittersweet, but it ended beautifully. With my grandchildren, 2 of them, being the namesake and the face of the characters in the story. The real children that I see on a daily basis, they're not cartoon or fictional children. These are very real children with very real lives and very real problems that are bigger than them. Unfortunately, our story hasn't ended in a fairy tale. Our story is very real to us. It sounds good on paper, the way the story ended in the storybook. But those 2 characters, they live with me. And that's not the way their story has ended. So I'm going to go back to the question, what can be done? How can we help families so that they can remain together, so that they will have a more successful outcome? You see, our family is too late. It's too late for our family. I honestly believe that there's nothing, absolutely zero, that can be done that will be able to save our family, but maybe for yours. Maybe for yours. You know, forgive me. Forgive me. I don't want to cry. What can be done? What can we do in our communities to reach out to families that may be going through We don't even realize. You pass us in the grocery stores, you see us on the street, you see the way I'm dressed, you wouldn't know that I don't have a place to call home. The car that I'm in, I'm borrowing it. It's not funny. This is reality for some families. This is very real. So what can you do in your community? We are the Tyler Perrys of our communities. We are the Tyler Perrys in our communities. He can't shoulder the responsibilities that we all, each one of us, can take to help another family survive. It's not just about me. People could look at me all day long and judge or misjudge the situation and say what I could or should be doing. I'm already doing enough of that. But in the meantime, there are children that did not ask to be placed in the foster care system, that are placed with family members who, like me, try until we're just so burnt out. When I said that I just don't see any hope on the horizon, I don't see where this could change the outcome for us, I still see where we're going to be separated, because this is it for us. I'm at the end of the road and the end of my rope with this. I love my grandchildren, but I know that there's better waiting for them. So what can you do to help a family that's entering into the foster care system, or that will soon enter into it, so that you can prevent an outcome like this one? Gift cards are amazing things. Gift cards. Now, grocery cards are nice. They're important and they're needed. Gift cards like prepaid debit cards, Visa, MasterCard, things that will cover food, toiletries, school supplies, gasoline, you name it. There are things that people don't think about. If there's a grocery cart, that family may not have gas for the kids to get to school. They just may not. Gift cards for clothing at certain stores, that's great. I've seen people give gift cards to Kohl's or Target, and sometimes there are some items that are overpriced and they're not able to get anything now, or not much. But gift cards can help. Any little bit helps. I don't care if you can just get a pair of socks. Those are things that can really help a family. Maybe the family's just starting all over. Maybe they've lost everything like we have. Maybe they need, they could really use or appreciate your old furniture. You're getting new furniture the Christmas season, or you want a brand new dining room set or living room set. I can assure you there's a family somewhere that would benefit greatly, greatly from your used items, your old clothing, old jackets, jeans for the kids to play in. Backpacks are great for school. Sometimes there are backpack giveaways, and sometimes, those are great ways to help. Taking a meal over to a neighbor, a church member who's struggling with the same thing. Just as people get together and take food over during a wake or the loss of a loved one, that's a way to help a single grandmother that's trying, or a single grandpa, or single great-grand, or aunt or uncle, or even those that are married but are still struggling, trying to raise their children and someone else's children. Blankets, linens, towels, household goods, pots and pans, You'd be surprised the type of help that you can offer if you just ask. If you just think, what would I need? If I lost everything, what could I use? If this is a family that I know that has been displaced, perhaps I can pay for a night or a week in a motel for them. Those are things we really could have benefited from, because some nights we didn't have the blessing of a motel room. Sometimes people will ask, well, what about family? Sometimes families are unsupportive. Sometimes families are dysfunctional. Sometimes families are simply unable. Sometimes people think that it's such a monumental task and requirement. Well, I can't pay their rent for them. No, you can't. But hey, how about you and Uncle Joe put your 10 and his 20 together, and this one's got 50, and this one's got 5, and this one's got 30, and we put it all together, and you'd be surprised. Family might be able to eat tonight and have a roof over their heads, a safe place to sleep, a warm, dry, safe place. You'd be surprised. The kids that show up in your child's classroom, your child doesn't even know a lot of the time what their own best friends are living through. I can promise you. I know educators, teachers that have children that have been paraded before them for years, decades, and they have no clue, because they're too busy with their own lives, their own circumstances, their own celebrity, their own vacations, their own whatever it is. And the very children that God has brought to their attention and brought into their lives, they never even noticed. They wish them well. They say, hey, fake it till you make it. But these kids can't be real with them about what they really need, what they really want. And a lot of times they just want to be like the other kids. Wouldn't you? So if there's a way that you can make an extra meal, or you can prepare a little bit extra when you're cooking yours, take some to that neighbor, that grandmother that you know that has 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. One child. You got an old car and you see this woman out at the bus stop. You know your neighbor or your church member is struggling and trying to get the kids around. The use of your car. Or maybe even the sacrifice is sitting out in the yard anyway. Maybe you could sell it for a reduced price if they can even afford that. Sometimes, this is what helped me. I'm just drawing from my memory also. I remember when my 3 grandsons joined my older grandchild and came to stay with us, and we had not yet received any funding. I didn't for the first 2.5 years, which is sad, but it's real. But I remember my granddaughter had a neighbor, a mother that, a friend and her mother and a brother that we were familiar with. Just that lady's kindness to come and give my granddaughter a ride while I'm still trying to get my grandsons ready. You see, 2 were in school and 2 were not at the time. That was a huge help to me. Just giving her a ride to school down the street. I didn't have to worry about this baby trying to walk down the street with all the pedophiles out there and the dangers that exist in this world. That took a load off my shoulders. And if she could pick her up, that was even better. I remember pulling a wagon around town, 3 little grandsons in the wagon and their sister walking beside me, and we would go to the Salvation Army or other organizations to get food. There's no shame in my testimony. There's no shame in anything that I have to tell you, because God allowed for it so that I could share this with you, so that maybe you don't have to experience it the way we did. When a family is reconnected and reunified, it's a beautiful thing, and it should be the most beautiful experience, and with the smoothest transition possible for the kids and for that relative that's taking this on. But guess what? Often it's not. Often it's not. So how can we make it better? You don't have to dig, but from what you can see, what you observe. Books for the kids, for them to read. Video games. An obsolete game system would be a blessing to many children that don't have a system at all. I remember we didn't have a car. The nearest park was far too far for us to walk to. So recreation for us was me getting up early on Saturday mornings, packing a lunch, pulling the kids in the wagon down to the local school. And that's how we spent our days instead of being in a hot apartment with no air conditioning. There's so many ways. You can invite the kids out. You can offer to take them to church, pick them up. Find a way to be a blessing. Look for ways to be a blessing. Ask God how you can be a simple blessing. When you see that grandmother, that grandpa that's reaching in their pockets at the store and they're struggling, they're counting out pennies, instead of shaking your head and getting impatient and gasping and blowing wind out of your mouth. Think of ways maybe you can slip them discreetly a little change. Maybe you can offer to pay for their groceries if you have it like that. Maybe when you're at the gas pump and you see somebody sitting in the car crying, as I have on many days when I'm just trying to get the babies to school or trying to make it home when we had a home, or trying to make it back to where we're able to stay. Just a gallon of gas, a gas card, $10 could make or break us until the next check came in. Anyway, I'm going to add to this video later. I'll do a part 2 in other ways that you can be supportive of families like ours. But in the meantime, just know, again, we are the Tyler Perrys in our communities, and it's up to us to reach out and help one another. We can't sit and wait for the lifeboat or the boat to come and save us. It may not circle back around. It may be too full from others that they're helping. So let us help one another. Okay? All right. May God bless you. Jesus loves you. Take care. And stop.